What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we got a really exciting one. Let's jump right into it. Alright guys, inside of this box is something I've been contemplating doing for a long time. Finally pulled the trigger. I'm excited to see. Alright, first off, packaging, next level. Look at this. I could go traveling. This is a new suitcase. This is really dope. As you saw, we finally got a nice chassis mounted shifter. And if you've recently seen Jig Jack's video, you know, he was telling you guys how to get a BMW shift linkage to work on the Mercedes Trans, which me and him kind of figured out together going back and forth. And it's something that we're both planning on doing. And this is step number one of making that happen. So we got to dive in. I'm excited. Ooh. Got a little instruction manual they give you. It's not going in a BMW, but I'm sure that'll come in handy a bit. Got some nice stickers. Cool. Now we gotta get into it. Play the glory music. So this is the Coolerworx BMW Pro short shifter, and this is for everything from E36s to E30s, E46s. A bunch of different applications can use this BMW wise, but obviously they didn't intend it to be put into a C-Class Mercedes, but we're gonna make it work regardless. I did pay my own money for this. It was pretty expensive. It's a very similar design to the CAE shifters, but about half the cost. So it was about $500+ shipped. Got here really fast, came all the way from Lithuania, got here in about 5 days. So that was pretty cool. And yeah, it has the self-centering spring, as you can see right there. It has the reverse lockout, as you saw in action, which is super cool. And let's see what else. Underneath, you can see this bracket that attaches. That's removable. So if you ever wanted to change out for like a different bracket, or in our case, I don't know, you know, hopefully this bracket fits right up. I'm planning to put basically a piece of sheet metal over the tunnel hole and then mounting this straight to that. Unless this will mount if I still have enough meat on either side of the you know, chassis hole. Can't really remember the dimensions of it, but you know, if I have enough clearance, then I can just mount it straight to that. Otherwise, I'll just mount a separate sheet and then mount it onto that. But man, this thing is super cool. All right, over here, as you guys saw in the earlier overview, here is our Coolerworx BMW Pro shifter. And I just got back from the hardware store, picking up all the miscellaneous hardware I'm gonna need to make this happen. I have the BMW shift rod joint, and I'll be using some aluminum plate just like I use for the mirrors, probably double stacking to actually mount this onto, and then I'll drill through this to mount to the factory holes. So I don't know how much I'm going to be recording. A lot of this process you guys have seen in past videos, like pulling all this stuff out. So I'll probably just be doing that on my own. And then once I'm actually making some progress on that whole setup, then I'll kind of update you guys and give you a recap of what has gone on so far. So fingers crossed, wish me luck. All right, guys, it is about a week later. Last time I just didn't have time to actually do all this. And I was thinking things are going to be a lot more complicated than they are going to be, most likely, fingers crossed, because I think I have another plan that will eliminate having to change this out, which is kind of a complicated matter. and it's going to be a tight space to even try to get this on if I were to try underneath the car. Having the transmission out would be ideal to do something like that, but I think there's a workaround reusing the Mercedes factory rod, and hopefully we can make this work. And I still might have to do some modification to this one, but at least it'll eliminate having to use the BMW shift joint. All right, center console is out. Now we're gonna make the deep dive plunge underneath the car. Pulling out that stuff has been in probably like 3 different videos, so I won't really cover that right now, but the main thing, I want to get all that stuff out so I can actually put this up top on the car and start to test fit how this is going to line up. The thing that I'm most concerned about right now is whether or not we can get clearance above the drive shaft for this bottom hanging portion. So I did pick up some aluminum square bar to be able to use as a spacer section right here, which will bring it up. Every piece of that would be 3/4 of an inch. So we can raise that up, about that much. And then there's also 3 slots here, which I could move this to the 3rd slot, and that would also bring it up by another 1/2 inch or so, or maybe, I don't know, in between 1/2 inch and so. But that's the biggest thing. I want to just get everything out of the way in there, test fit this. That's step number 1. All right, guys, quick update. I wish it was this easy. It's sitting in here, but right now it's basically hitting onto the drive shaft. You can hear that, which I suspected because it's quite long underneath compared to the factory one. So I bought that 3/4 of an inch square aluminum tubing that I can stack underneath this. So with that, I think we got plenty of clearance. So I will start to mock up. My plan is I'm going to bolt aluminum plate. I'll get this out of the way. I'm going to get aluminum plate and basically build a square for it to sit on, bolt into the factory holes, and then cut a hole in the center, and this bracket will get bolted to that aluminum plate and through that aluminum square tubing as well for that height increase. So that's the plan, and I need to go underneath right now and figure out the shift rod plan, but I guess I'll start with this first, get this kind of mocked up and mounted. Luckily this thing can slide, like it's got slide adjustments, so I can kind of play with the positioning of this, and then I can decide, do I want to use that original rod that we had in here that we cut and welded to length when it fit pretty centered in here, or do I want to use the welded one that we made more recently that is a little closer to the back. And I think we'll see what I end up doing, but I think somewhere around there might be good. All right, so quick update. Got the aluminum sheets cut out to size and drilled for the spots they're gonna get bolted to. Now I'm gonna go underneath the car and try to figure out where I'm going to mark for the center hole to be cut out. I could cut it out to the same factory size, but that's gonna be kind of overly big. So I'm gonna try to estimate where I can go with the shifter. All right, guys, so a little update. I've been working away, but here's our template. It's actually gonna sit like this, and I'll clean this up once I'm closer to being finished. I'll probably have to notch these over a little more. I'm not exactly sure how far the left and right movement for the actual lever at the bottom of the shifter is, but this works for now as far as mocking up. I'm drilling these holes so that I can get these spacers figured out. I think this is for this side. So getting these spacers figured out so I can kind of do a mock mount up with the shifter in the car, and that way I know exactly where the shift rod need to be positioned. So we'll see. Stay tuned. All right, guys, I'm pretty psyched right now. Got it lined up, and the clearances are just right. Like, luckily so. And my hardware choices at the hardware store last week paid off. They're like exactly proportionate as well. So these 4 will hook up to the spacer, that aluminum bar on the front 4 positions, and then these back 2, actually I'll be able to reuse the factory bolts, so that's cool. And I'll show you how tight of clearance that was. So you can see that's the edge of the opening right there, and that's where the nuts are sitting. So literally like tight as possible for clearance. And same thing on that side. You can hardly see those ones because it's dark right here. My light died down here. But yeah, we got good clearance from the drive shaft. It's about an inch or more above it. Let me feel. Yeah, we got about, maybe not an inch or more, but about an inch from the drive shaft. All right, so everything is kind of mocked up right now. I put all the bolts in. Nothing is tight yet. But I'm gonna check now. I'm gonna hook it up to the actual rod, or actually I need to figure out what I want to do for the rod. So I'm gonna go through here and make sure first that I can go through all the gears and stuff and see if I have enough clearance on this hole that I cut out in the center. I might need to widen it a little bit, so we'll see here shortly. But yeah, more work to follow. All right, guys, well, I thought I was close to success, but I was not. Thought it was going to be a workaround, but because this was a ball joint, basically when I was trying to shift gears, it just was moving around. So we'll see what we're going to end up doing. Guys, we got wrecked today. Coming back strong tomorrow to button everything up. See you in the morning. What's going on, you guys? Welcome back. It's the next morning. I got me and my mechanic partner back here. Hey, what's up, buddy? Anyways, we're gonna go over to my parents' house and try to finish up the car right now. Had to leave yesterday, just ran out of time. I took all day with that trying to figure out the solution. So right now I will give you guys kind of a play-by-play of what went down and what our final version is gonna be and looks like. So anyways, catch you there. So here's where we're at with the shift rod. So we did end up reusing the factory rod, but when we tried to mount this on, there's kind of like a little ball joint like this one that was here before, and it's actually a thread-in piece. You can see on this side, it was rocking just left and right, and it wouldn't let us go into gear. It would basically just go into, like, I don't know what it was, third and fourth, or first and second or something, but wouldn't let us go any other gears. So then we hollowed this out, basically. I don't know if I have the spare one to show you guys, but it looks like this from factory. It has a little cup on it to grab onto the ball joint, and basically hollowed that out, and then found some bushings and kind of bearings to fit inside of there, and then these flat washers to lock it in place, and then found a bolt. This is actually one of my old flywheel bolts that fit into the threads of this, the actual joint for the transmission. And now we're gonna tack it on this side and on the back side of the same, just so it has no chance of sliding forward or back, kind of help it stay in place a little better. So we'll see what happens. All right, so other update as far as in here in the car and the shifter, how it mounted. Ended up just using one of the aluminum plates because it's pretty solid, especially with the square tubing that we added for the spacer. So reuse the factory bolt locations up here, and then the back two as well down here. I had to notch the frame a bit on the actual shifter, and then use some washers to kind of lock it down. That's just because I wanted to reuse those factory locations. I guess I could have, you know, drilled holes in the chassis or something to mount it different, but and then these two is nice, is it just bolts through the actual plate. So I didn't have to drill any other holes into the chassis. All right, so we've gotten it to work. We got everything centered. So now if I go straight up, that's third, fourth, first, second, fifth, sixth, and then reverse. Now I need to still put the set screws in here to kind of lock out and do all that stuff, but it was kind of tricky. I used a combination of 2 nuts down at the bottom to try to find the exact spot to put third at the center position, because when we first tightened everything up, it was first and second at center position, and that made it really difficult to try to find third and fourth. So this way, now I know third and fourth is center, and first and second is a little bit over to the left, and then fifth and sixth over to the right. So how it was before. So for those that don't know, the Mercedes transmissions, and I found this out from the other shift setup, the center position should be a little bit angled on Mercedes. That lines it up so that third and fourth are straight up and down, and first and second is to the left, up and down. So if you're trying to mess with any Mercedes manual transmission and you're thinking, why is it angled? Or if you centered it perfectly straight and it's not going in all gears, that's why, because it needs to be off-centered a little bit. Dimitri is the one that let me know that, because I was like, why does it seem like it's off-center when it's going into all the gears properly? So yeah, he was the first one to let me notice that, and then I was noticing that as well when I was doing like the shifting adjustment on the other style shifter. So here's everything finished up basically on the top. Let me show you what it looks like on the bottom. All right, so first off, really nice. We don't have all this extra junk on the transmission anymore. There is the customized shift joint, I guess. We cut off that extra piece that was on the left-hand side, and we tacked down the washers, only on the rod though, so we can still separate the rod from that shifter joint. And we threw some Loctite on the bolt that is going through there. I gotta snug it up right now. And then for the actual bottom of the shifter, you can see I used a 10mm bolt that's going through there, I think it's 10mm bolt with a 14mm head on it and 17mm nylon lock nut on this side. And then I locked another one against this one, because we didn't actually, when I tightened this all the way, what I was saying, tightening all the way snug, it was putting this to first and second in the center. So I basically loosened this just a tiny bit until we found that it was putting it at third and fourth center. So then I found that spot and then tightened this nut up against this one so that this will stay put. And hopefully I'm gonna have to test this for a while and make sure everything is not moving around. So we should be good. But yeah, it's gonna be a testing period, definitely, to make sure everything's going smooth. So now I'm gonna go ahead and tighten that nut up all the way. We were waiting until we got everything situated. I'll tighten that one up all the way, and then it's gonna be just the process of putting everything back together, which has gotten pretty easy at this point because I've done it so many times. So slipping the drive shaft back on, bolting the flex disc, transmission mount in the bracket, and then this bracket right here. Now, this one, I actually took one off of the manual shifters. I don't know what happened to my old automatic one. I might have tossed it out. But this little bar right here goes across, and this is a safety feature to keep the drive shaft. If it ever were to come undone, it'll at least give you some protection so it's not hitting the ground and your car doesn't flip up in the air. So you definitely want to replace this or reinstall it if you are taking this out to do anything like this. So I am going to definitely put mine back in there too. So yeah, it's just a matter of buttoning everything back up, and I'll let you guys know when everything's finished. All right, so satisfying time. We got the set screws in place. Now Now it goes super nice. That's first and second, third and fourth, fifth, sixth, and reverse. I'm pumped. I'm really happy with how this turned out. It was a lot of work. Like, I'm not gonna kid anybody and tell anybody any different. If you are one of those people that have manual swapped your Mercedes, looking into these BMW options is a great alternative, because the Mercedes factory gear shift mechanisms are so hard to find, especially stateside. The two of them I ordered were from Germany, and one of them I ordered, the Crossfire one, happened to be in Washington, and I got lucky. But that's the one that in the original swap video we had to cut and, you know, makeshift because it was too long. So yeah, it requires a lot of searching and a lot of hunting if you're going to try to stick with the factory gear shift mechanism. But something like this, yes, it requires some fab work. We had to, you know, make the plate and do all this other stuff, but that's with this specific shifter. There's other things that'd be a lot easier to just plug and play in, but I wanted this, so it was a little bit of fab work. But, you know, had we done this from the get-go, like when I first swapped the transmission, first off, I could have done the swap a lot earlier because I wouldn't have been waiting around trying to find a gear shift mechanism. Second of all, it's just a lot less hassle once it's figured out. Like, once you have it in there and figured out, this is so much simpler. Like, the clutter down below, there's no more, you know, like wishbone style body that's going around everything, and the whole cable mechanism that was on the left side, it's just not a good design. You know, it works, it was functional, but it's not that great of a design, to be honest, in my opinion. So these are a great alternative. If you're manual swapping a Mercedes, look into switching up, especially before you put the transmission in. Switch out to that to the BMW joint, and look at what BMW options are as far as shifters go. You could get a stock shifter. You could get a DSSR. You could get, you know, one of these type of setups. You could get the what's it called, Drift HQ setup, or whatever else. There's so many options for BMW. CAE, RTD, IRP, Samsonite. All of these different companies produce these shifters for these cars. This one being Coolerworx. So yeah, besides that, thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for a little clip at the end of this video of me driving it, and I will see you all on part 2 once I get it fully situated and I can give you proper feedback, having reviewed it for a little while. Anyways, peace.